Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar with Broad Radio. My name is Emily McFarlane. I am a senior campaign lead here at Birchal. And before I introduce our beautiful team today, I'd just like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I am beaming to you from today. So Birchal is based on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we'd like to pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. So today I'm joined by a few faces today. So we've got Rowena, who is the Technical Director of Broad Radio, Darren, who is the co-founder and director, and Joe, who is the co-founder and CEO. Before we kick things off, I just want to give you a little bit of a rundown of Birchal and what we do. So Birchal is working with Broad Radio on an upcoming crowdsourced funding offer. A lot of people are unfamiliar with crowdsourced funding or CSF. A lot of people might know it as equity crowdfunding. So it's a relatively new form of fundraising in Australia that allows startups and small businesses to raise capital from a large number of smaller or retail investors, as well as wholesale or sophisticated investors through an online platform. And in this case, it is Birchal. So instead of seeking funding from traditional sources such as a bank or a venture capitalist, companies can turn to the general public and offer their communities to raise funds in exchange for equity in their business. So Birchal Financial Services will be the licensed intermediary for the offer. The information today in this webinar is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as advice or a recommendation to invest. So please, I would implore you to do your own research and always consider the offer document and general CSF risk warning before investing. But there's plenty more information available on the Birchal website. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out to our customer support team. So before we get started, the team at Broad Radio is going to take you through a short presentation all about Broad Radio, where they've come from, what they're looking to achieve with this capital raise, and then we'll switch to a short Q&A section. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a little Q&A bubble, and if you've got any questions during today's session, please pop it into the Q&A box as we go along, and we will answer this during the Q&A time at the end. We're also recording today's session, so if you do have to jump off early, a recording will be sent around. Without further ado, let me hand over to the team at Broad Radio. Please take it away, guys.
Thank you so much. It is so lovely to be joining you all. And thank you to everyone for giving us your time today. I don't take that lightly, particularly as I have just been told that the Super Bowl is on. And I must say, I have never competed with Usher before. I have interviewed him, but I've never competed with him. So I am grateful that you're giving us this time, and it's lovely to see you all. I wish I could actually learn a bit about you and to hear a bit about where you're coming from. So please, if you'd like to just, reach out to me, I would love that. You can always drop me a line on Facebook or Instagram via my own at Real Joe Stanley or via Broad Radio, or you can email me at joe@broadradio.com.au as well. I'm always really happy to hear from you. So my name is Joe Stanley and I am co-founder and CEO of Broad Radio. I have spent 20 years working in the media, particularly in radio, and I can honestly say, hand on my heart, that Broad Radio is my life's purpose. It is the culmination of all of the things that I have done in my 20-year media career. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a minute. But first, I did want to introduce the two others that are joining me today. I will be doing most of the talking, but we have a huge support with these two incredible people working very hard behind the scenes. So I want to introduce Darren McFarlane, who is co-founder and one of the team. He'll just share a little bit about himself in a minute. And also Roy Murray, who has many hats as well. So Daz, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Nice to meet you all. I am a co-founder and director. My role at Broad Radio is operations and branding. Outside of Broad Radio, I'm a senior producer with over 20 years experience working in film, TV commercials. And prior to that, I spent 10 years of my life doing a PhD in chemistry. So that's me in a bit of a nutshell. Over to you, Ro.
Great, thank you, Darren. So as Emily mentioned before, I wear a couple of different hats. I'm the technical director and the marketing director here at Broad Radio. I've got 30 years under my belt as basically a marketing and with a heavy digital slant person. So I've been both a digital marketer for brands like Priceline and 7-Eleven. I can code, although I don't like to do it very much, but I've also been working as a publicist or a marketing director in a lot of different styles of companies, including financial services. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I saw that audio was becoming more and more and more prominent in how people consumed media. So I went back to uni for a bit and qualified as an audio engineer. So I can also panel radio shows as well as market and hang tight with digital. So that's where I am.
And Broad, hello Broad, and Ro, don't sell yourself short around what you've been doing as far as the app is concerned. It's been very critical.
Yeah, we're very excited with the app. We've created this great little beastie that means that Broad Radio can be listened live at any time as well as on demand. And we've worked with some of the absolute best in the business to create a really robust app that can stand up among any major, radio station. We're up there. We've got the quality and we've got the robustness. So it's a super exciting time.
Yes. So Ro has been the lead on that as well. Absolute gem she is to us. Daz, would you like to share our slides there? Thank you.
Go.
So today we want to share with you really all the things that we think are critical to you confidently investing in Broad Radio. We are most definitely a purpose-driven business, but we're also for profit. And we're offering you this opportunity to become a shareholder, which is very exciting to us, but we do take it very seriously. And we're very committed to this opportunity being one of great value to you. So in a nutshell, Broad Radio is radio for women by women. It's internet radio delivered via an app that you Bluetooth to your device. It's live talkback, it's music, podcasts, and a whole ecosystem of interactive and engaging content that is specifically intended to feature women's voices, elevate the voices that we don't hear really as often as we'd like in mainstream media, and it is targeted specifically to a female 35 plus audience. So if you can imagine every topic that you hear covered in your favorite podcasts, or whether it's the news of the day, it could be finance to health to comedy to relationships, sport, everything that you love to listen to, we cover it. It's broad. We cover the broad spectrum, intended, that pun. We cover the broad spectrum of content, but we're always elevating women's voices when we do that in those conversations. We're smart, we're funny, we're inspiring and informative. That's what you're here in Broad Radio. Our mission is very much to grow into being the #1 radio network for women in Australia, supporting women in their happiness, health, and pursuit of fearlessness. And we say that because I've witnessed firsthand over the many decades that I've worked in radio that radio actually has the ability to really inspire and change and uplift someone's life. And I want that for the women who, as we go about our days, sometimes we need a little uplift. And I know that we as a radio network are able to impact women in their happiness, health, and pursuit of fearlessness. And our vision is really to have that broader impact on gender equality in Australia. So let me tell you how it all began. Broad Radio came about during lockdown. It was an idea that was conceived by Daz and myself. Daz is my business partner as well as my husband for 20 years. And, we thought about, look, some people have babies during lockdown, and we decided to start an independent media company. And it came from a few aha moments, to use an Oprah term. The first one was I was actually working at Triple M. I was doing guest spots and filling in at Triple M and loving it. I really love Triple M as a fantastic radio model that is specifically for an audience and servicing that audience in a really beautiful way, creating a home for that audience. And in this instance for Triple M, it's, men who have this beautiful space in which they are understood and they hear content that's specifically for them. And I love that. I love that about Triple M. They do that very well. And it's important that that audience has that home. But as I was listening, I was thinking, you know what, I'd like to listen to this, but for me, for women, I was at that time in my 40s, for women over 35, and I couldn't find it. And it occurred to me that there was no radio for women over 35 in that way. So as I delved deeper into that, I discovered a statistic that I found particularly disturbing and actually quite a surprise as someone who had worked on radio for, by that stage, 15 years or so. And that is, of the female voices we hear on radio, only 27% are female. And if that's the case, which it is factual, but if we do know that radio shapes society, it both reflects and shapes society, as someone who is passionate about gender equality, that really disturbed me. Because if we're missing voices, then surely that's going to have an impact on, how equal our society is. But then also the business case that really hit me home about that was the fact that 80% of purchases are the responsibility of the women in the household. So we know that we're the key grocery buyers. We know that not only do we buy, but we tell everybody to buy. So we're influencers as well. So this is a really, really amazingly powerful audience that is currently being overlooked. And to me, that felt like it didn't make sense and was a huge opportunity. And the final thing that happened during lockdown, you would all remember, we're doing it right now, that streaming and digital just exploded, right? Suddenly we could just reach anybody in our own homes with our own content. And that has actually been happening for the last few years. The digital audio is it's growing rapidly. And radio, whilst still going very strong, 79% of Australians listen to radio every week. So it's still a very popular medium. The thing that is shifting is how it's being delivered. And that digital is this great growth area that is being reflected in what is being invested from the advertisers, but also that more and more people are streaming audio, not just music streaming, but podcasts and online streaming as well. So that's what we're doing. We're going to be streaming live radio as well as podcasts and all of our internet, all of our content anywhere in Australia, which is really exciting to us because we love the idea of reaching regional and remote areas as well. So with this great opportunity, we started an MVP with a live streamed weekly show on Facebook and YouTube we used our daughter's toy room, much to her distress. Took a lot of negotiation and many tears for her to agree to let us to set up our studio in there. You can see that's beautiful Miff there with me on, have you got it there, Daz? Yeah, there's Miff on one of our live streams, Miff Warhurst. We've had huge support from so many incredible content creators and hosts and performers in Australia and around the world, actually. So we started this live stream as a really cost-effective way of testing and learning exactly what we're going to be doing on Broad Radio. It's been a 3-year intense testing and learning phase to understand what content works, who our audience is, what our audience likes. And equally during that time, we've been researching and developing the tech at the back end of our app. Ro and I have been working intensely on that so that we're going to be able to broadcast live radio to you. And during this testing and learning phase, there were 2 really important things that we were testing. One was our audience. Now, we know that there are 5 million women in Australia aged 35 to 64. Women like Renee. Renee was someone who I really sort of attached myself to in my mind because she, is like so many of us. She's juggling a career. She's got kids. She's got aging parents. Life is whirlwind. She craves lightness and laughter, and she wants everything in one place. And so Renee is just one version of us, and I want to establish that whilst we have said this particular population number of 35 to 64, that has just been used as a proof point for the size of the market. I want to really emphasise that we are not cutting off our content at 64. In fact, we already have featured over the last 3 years in our many different but we've created hundreds of hours of content through our podcast and through our live streams, and we have featured women of all ages, and we will continue to do that. So that is very, very important for me to establish. But 5 million women in Australia, As well as this, we know if you're looking at your average audience listening time and the average cost for podcast advertising, we calculated that's an estimated $600 million market. Are you sharing that slide there, Daz?
I think Daz may
I don't know
have
if
just
we've lost the press.
dropped off. I'm just getting it set up again now. If you just bear with me 1 second.
Sorry about
We've
that.
lost our...
You're back. Oh, did you want to take over, Daz? Great.
Yep, back in. All good. Sorry about that. My internet dropped out. Weird.
Oh, that's
Gotta love
annoying, isn't it,
technology.
darling?
Did we move on to the next slide?
7. Next one. There's our beautiful diversity of women. And then this is what I'm talking about, which was our the next one, darling.
Yep.
Thank you. So we estimated, based on the 5 million women aged 35 to 64, again, just a sample market, and the average hours that they listen to, 3.5 hours daily, which amounts to a certain level of advertising, which we estimated comes to $600 million market a year. Now, if you adjust to digital listening and then to what would be online and podcast, that gets us to a serviceable, obtainable market of $343 million every year, which I know, to me, that is a very, very exciting prospect, to be able to create content for them and to really connect them with, a radio network that is their home. At the same time, we tested the market. We did some surveying. We surveyed 360 women, and 87% of them said they would listen to radio. The totality of our content over that time has reached over 1 million people. You know, we were doing advertising in very short-term sprints because we were very small scale at the time. But when we have advertised, particularly in this actual crowd fund, our Instagram has grown 42%, Facebook 19%, subscribers 24%. There's a real hunger. And actually, we receive constantly thousands of messages of women saying they want radio for women by women. So we've proven the market and the audience interest. And the second thing we really needed to prove was this assumption that brands, which is key, obviously, to our revenue and to sustainable growth, that brands would like to connect with our audience. Now, we are 96% women over 35. That's what our audience is, which is a very cost-effective platform if you're wanting to reach women of that demographic. And we have been proven, this theory of ours has been proven time and time again by the fact that brands and marketers constantly approach me wanting to actually work with us. And it's been quite frustrating, I will say, because during this testing and learning phase, we haven't had much inventory. We've been creating podcasts and we've been doing the live stream, but not a lot of inventory there. And we haven't technically really even had a platform yet. Yet people are approaching me, and you can see all the different brands there. On occasion, I've said, I don't know if we can help you with your actual, what you're seeking, your goals for this campaign. But often we have been able to create a bespoke opportunity for the brands that we're working with. We're doing one at the moment with New Life IVF, who are a beautiful doctor-led fertility clinic in Victoria, and they've had fantastic results with landing page click-throughs with the campaign that we've run for them. So whilst we have had revenue over the last 3 years, $330,000, that is not indicative of our model at scale, because our app and our programming aren't even in the market yet. Rather, it is such an indication to us that there is a great hunger from brands to work with us. So quickly, just our business model is that it's multi-layered. We have 2 customer segments, the audience and commercial partners. And so there's a freemium revenue model with the audience. Our app will always be free, but there's a membership rewards-based freemium model there. And then there's the advertising model and that side of, on the other side of our business model. So it's been an extraordinary 3 years of relentless 7 days a week work on our behalf, considerable investment from us as well. We believe so passionately in this incredible business, and that the profitability and the growth has huge potential. And so now the reason that we are raising funds is so that we can release our app to the market and get our programming into the market. With the use of funds, it would be releasing the app, expanding our programming, advertising and marketing, and also working with a consultant to really do some fantastic B2B marketing to establish some solid commercial partners, which partnerships is absolutely key. Already, we have been working very hard behind the scenes to have partnerships in place, audience partnerships that will be with us from the beginning of the app being released. We have had great people. Daz, have you got that yellow slide?
Yep.
Yeah. Already, we've got people that we're working with, talent as well as podcasts, to already bring an audience with them. And that's very critical to our audience acquisition, as that we work with partners and brands that both have an aligned audience and aligned values with us, so that we're bringing value to our audience as well as bringing value to theirs. We have, as Darren was just showing you, great tailwinds behind us. The digital explosion of content and also the investment in digital advertising, but also it's a wonderful time for women-led content. And I think we've seen that with AFLW, Hello Sunshine, Mamma Mia, hugely successful. It is a time for women-led content, and we have those tailwinds at our back, and also the booming independent media market, which is something we're excited to be entering. So return on investment is very much forefront of our minds, and it is related to the correlation between programming and increasing our channels, increasing our talent and our content, establishing relationships with brand partners, sharing our content via syndication and licensing partnerships, and eventually moving into new markets. Because we're internet radio, we intend for this to scale globally. There's absolutely no limits as far as that's concerned. So as you can see, that as we increase those 5 pillars, so do the profits increase, so do our audience, so does the advertising, and then that cycle goes round and round.
I'll just add a very quick note. In terms of, the going global piece, it's really exciting because we've seen the success of certain podcasters, that really bolsters the female audience engagement. Call Her Daddy, which has over 5 million weekly listeners, is right up there with the absolute, it's one of the top 3 in the world at the moment. And that's a really simple single format bit of content. So we know that there's appetite, even though you can sort of look at the podcasting or internet radio sphere and see the Joe Rogans or the Howard Sterns of the world and go, it's a boys' club again. You can absolutely see that there is appetite, and there's almost no limit to how big that can get.
Yeah. So we want to say thank you for you expressing your interest in investing with us. We've had 3 very intense years of investing in this business ourselves and working extremely hard during this testing and learning phase. But we know from these 3 years that we've got the formula right. We have the content right. We have the talent right. We can clearly see that the audience is ready to engage with us, and we can see how we can connect with a sustainable revenue, so that it's, that we have profitable growth that we are delivering to our investors. So it's wonderful to be able to open up to our community via this equity CSF. It was quite deliberate on our behalf to include our community, because Broad Radio has always been about the women that we want to speak to and the voices that we want to elevate. And so it's wonderful for us to be able to offer this opportunity, because we really, really look forward to sharing our success with you.
Thank you so much, team. It's interesting. One of the usual questions that I have for founders is, why CSF? Why crowdsource funding versus other funding operations? I mean, it seems really obvious. You have such a strong community. Community is central to your business in terms of your mission, what you want to achieve. How are you finding bringing the crowd on board versus traditional areas of fundraising?
Well, it's been incredibly exciting. Maybe it's I always think that media is a little bit of a needy business. We're very needy. We like to get feedback all the time, right? And so it's very validating to have so many comments and so many interactions, thousands and thousands and thousands of people reaching out and saying, if we can't invest, how do we support you? regardless of this. So that's been amazing. But the response as far as retail investors is concerned is wonderful. I have to say, as a woman who does not come from a finance background or from a family that has sort of been in this world, it's really exciting to me that I might be providing the opportunity for someone to consider investing when they've never thought of it before. I love that about crowdfunding, that it actually destigmatizes and demystifies and takes that, I think, that barrier to entry away from that kind of really kind of scary world for those of us who haven't ever been in that sort of space, right? So I love that we might be providing that opportunity for some people who are going, oh, this is maybe something I can do, and I never thought that I could.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that crowdsourced funding is really new as an investment opportunity to a lot of people. And I think that knowledge is power in that sense. So I always encourage people to learn as much as you can about the opportunity. And, a lot of people wouldn't know what an offer document is. They wouldn't know how to invest in this, and that you can invest from such a low amount and really get in there, diversify your portfolio with some really exciting up-and-coming brands, as well as supporting these founders, particularly yourself, Jo. So I've had, actually, this is a suggestion from one of our audience today. Have you ever thought about approaching Netball Australia as the biggest participation sport in the country for women and girls?
I have not spoken specifically with Netball Australia. Most of my conversations around sporting partnerships has been with AFLW, which is where sort of my natural in is. I have a lot of sort of inroads there. But it's a really fantastic point that you make in and around what opportunities there are around partnerships. And partnerships are absolutely key when it comes to our customer acquisition. As I said, it's about not just commercial partners, but organizations that already have an audience, and being able to have our content sit within their channels and then directing people back to our platforms as well. I guess you could sort of, often I think of ourselves as we're like a content marketing agency that brings an audience with us in a way. We're great content creators. That's absolutely my wheelhouse, 20 years in the media, and I have 2 #1 breakfast radio shows under my belt. So content is absolutely innate to me. Luckily, I am the audience as well, so that helps. But yeah, so most definitely Netball Australia is on our radar, as are all of those incredible member organisations that have huge networks for not just women in our demographic, but their daughters as well, and sons. I want to establish that we welcome all listeners of all kinds.
Great. So I've had a question around a timeline for releases on your products. So when will the app be released to the public? When will live broadcasting commence? This audience member has said that they've only been able to access podcasts, but hasn't seen this as a live radio model. Is it a podcasting model? Or would you be able to give a little bit more transparency on a key timeline for releases?
Absolutely. So the timeline is, it's dependent on the raise, of course. The current offering that we have is podcasts, and that's always going to be a big part of our platform. All of our live content will be repurposed as podcasts, as well as other podcasts that we're creating, and other content creators will be a part of that podcast side of things. The live is going to be released as the app is released. As far as a timeline is concerned, like I said, it's dependent on the raise, and our intention always is to approach that in a very deliberate and responsible way. Content costs money, right? It's a capital intense. It takes a lot, not just the amount of people involved, but of course, it's a resource heavy line item in your budget. So you want to make sure that you release these shows in a way that is gradual. We're building the audience, we're building the app, and to ensure that it's actually sustainable. So the timeline will come when the release of the app comes, and then we'll be sharing every single piece of content that is released live as it happens.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was actually very in-depth. So I've had a commentary around one of the largest occupations in Australia for women being nursing. Have you thought about approaching nursing and midwifery professional organisations?
Yeah, I mean, we've already partnered with health organisations. We did a partnership with Gene House for Women's Health, which was a fantastic, if you would say it was like a subsidiary stream to our regular live stream. And so most definitely, again, health organisations and the health industry, whether it's nursing, whether it's midwifery, whether it's, alternative health, there are so many different areas there. Which we most definitely will be exploring. And the great thing about doing the live shows, which will be eventually will roll out as a 7-day-a-week programming schedule, is that we'll be having weekly nighttime shows that can be special interest shows. We'll be having the breakfast shows, the drive shows. In and around that, you can do lots of different content live as well as on demand. So yeah, topics and everything around that is absolutely limitless.
Awesome. Will you be using music as a feature for your content?
Music? Yes, most definitely. That's really critical. And certainly when we release the app, that will be one of the first things that we share. So there'll be music right from the outset. And we're excited to delve into all the music that similarly to the voices around Australia. There's lots of musicians that we haven't heard for a long time, or perhaps are a little independent and you don't hear on mainstream media. We're really looking forward to exploring that.
Awesome. So at the moment, what's your strategy for producing more fans and, I guess, followers of your community?
Absolutely. So it's multi-pronged, of course. So one of the key use of funds is advertising and marketing at a level that we have not had in the past. As I said, the last 3 years has been about a testing and learning phase. So we kept our investment in advertising and marketing to, just really key strategic sprints, which established an audience and really demonstrated to us what was possible when you do advertise and have a paid sort of campaign on social media. So that's going to be really key to it. Absolutely, audience partners, as I've spoken about, bringing in also talent that have prior audience with them as well, and all of your customer acquisition sort of strategies that you do around SEO, in-app advertising, app optimization as well. I mean, there are many parts to that. But the key for me is in ensuring that our content exists outside the app as well. And so when you have got podcasts on Spotify and wherever else you might listen to our content, or it might be within, let's suggest, if it is Netball Australia, all of that content exists outside the app as well, but it's directing people back into the app. And at that time, when we are outside of the app, there are opportunities for earning revenue from that. It shouldn't be just customer acquisition. We should be earning revenue at the same time.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jo. So from this crowdfunding raise, is there a minimum amount that you will be accepting investors from?
We have said for as little as $250 you can invest, and most definitely I have seen and been very heartened by the amount of people who have done so.
Awesome. The second half of that question.
And maximum, there is no maximum.
I mean,
as far as the level of
maximum.
No, there is a maximum as far as what we will raise. But from an individual level, talk to us. If you are a sophisticated investor, we're very keen to speak with you.
So I'll just clarify, there's a little bit of a difference between investor classes in crowdsource funding. So you might have heard us use the terms retail versus wholesale investors. So a retail investor is your everyday person, you and I, all of us. And what Jo was referring to is being able to invest from as little as $250. So if you do wish to invest above $10,000, you will need what's called a wholesale investor certificate. So you can read a little bit more about that on the Birchal website. But if you don't have one of those, you're welcome to invest up to $10,000. So I'll pop a little link in the chat so that you can read a little bit more about it if you're unfamiliar. And if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out through the support little bot that you'll find in the bottom right-hand corner of the Birchal website, and we'd be happy to help you. So in terms of pushing the boundaries with content guests, so people who might be saying things that are a little bit controversial, ahead of the curve, but getting pushback, how do you tend to approach that with Broad Radio?
That is such a great question, and most definitely it is a challenge for any content creator. Pushing the boundaries is one of those things that everyone has their own standard for that, right? Like, how do you even define that across the board? For us, we go through a very clear content strategy and our mission. We return to our mission and our values. And our mission is we exist to support women being in their happiness, their health, and their pursuit of fearlessness. So that to me, and you know, over the last 20 years in radio, one thing I've learned is you absolutely need to have non-negotiables as far as your own values and as far as what you will and won't put on the show, and filters that you refer to when something that might seem a little bit grey comes up. And for me, that is how I will always return in our choices of what we put on air. Controversial is fine. Pushing the boundaries is really important, I think. I think conversations that challenge the status quo are really important. But we will always return to, is this contributing to women's health, happiness, and the pursuit of fearlessness? And if it's not, if at any point this conversation is going to be harmful to someone's mental health, or maybe harmful to someone's sense of self, or, you know, there are lots of ways you can really carve up your content, of course, and really think about it. That's our main filter.
So obviously you're looking at targeting a really broad, pardon the pun, range of people in your audience. How do you go about finding people who are going to speak to different sectors of society, different groups of people? I know that a lot of people, and I've seen it from the Facebook comments that have been on all of your promotional materials, people really want to get involved. They really want to chat. They want their voices to be heard. How do you go about, taking on guests and voices that are going to be broadcast across your network?
Well, again, as a content producer, content director, you are very much guided by what is it that my audience wants to listen to today. I mean, that was drummed into me over 15 years in breakfast radio. And so I'm guided by what people want to hear that day. Also through that filter that I just spoke about. But what's interesting, what's entertaining, what's going to give people a spark that day, what's going to help people get out of bed that day, what's going to make them laugh, what's in the news that actually I feel like we haven't got enough information on, or what is going to be moving, what actually makes you feel alive. Like, these are the conversations that you have as a team. And let me tell you, you're right. I'm never short of content and people who have approached me. There are so many conversations out there that we could be having. So that's never the issue. It's about just sort of going, okay, so what is it for today that's really going to capture this moment and really bring our audience connected, feeling like they're understood and heard, and gives them a great day.
Yeah, and Jo, I'd love to give you a little bit more credit almost than you've given yourself on that one, particularly while we were doing the live streaming show and working on that great MVP, content. I've seen yourself and the producing team make some really interesting, guest decisions where, commercial radio might be zigging and you've definitely zagged because you've gone, we need to hear a different perspective. We need to hear a better informed perspective. We need to hear, more female-centered stories. And yourself and the producing team have really consistently not just gone off the press releases or the, big corporate spokesperson of the day, but really looked around who is an activist or who is participating deeply, who is an expert, who's actually got a voice to share. So, I'll definitely give you some props that I genuinely think that Broad Radio, right at the core of its content strategy and applying those filters and principles, in line with the mission, is very much, we are centering women's voices. We are telling authentic stories, and Joe and the producing team have been doing a brilliant job of doing that today.
Thanks, Ro.
I've seen
It's
the
a joy.
support within the team.
I mean, what a great opportunity. Hey?
It's so nice to see the support within the team.
Yeah.
So something that I've been seeing a lot, not even just within the questions that are coming up today, but also in the interactions that have occurred throughout your expression of interest campaign, is people who want to join as shareholders and part owners in the business, essentially, really would love to have their voices heard and, to have some kind of promotion from Broad Radio. Is there the opportunity to do that? Is that something that you've considered?
Absolutely. So I mentioned there the freemium model that we have for our audience. So as I said, the app is always going to be free to listen to, because obviously the more listeners we have, the more relationships we have with our commercial partners. So that's really critical. But we do have a membership model whereby it's an monthly or annual fee for added bonus content and lots of different member rewards. So as a shareholder, you would get that membership for free. It would be included. And a part of that whole program is very much a creation of networking opportunities, whether it's your business, whether it's content that you yourself are creating. It's an opportunity for our members to really elevate their own voices. And we're excited about that down the track of actually exploring new technology and new ways we can do that sort of further down the track, not as a part of this particular raise, but it's sort of, down our roadmap. That's really key to really, because for me, when I talk about elevating women's voices, it's not just the women on the shows that we create, whether it's live or podcast, but it's our audience. And I've always seen your audience are content creators as well. We're all in this together, creating the conversation and sharing it with each other and helping each other feel connected. So yes, that's all going to sit on that membership side of things.
Awesome. So I know that you're really focused on being inclusive and trying to reach a huge number of audiences. Do you find that there's much commitment being put into the team to ensure that you are protecting people's mental health, like you'd mentioned before, so being trauma informed?
Absolutely. I feel great responsibility when that comes to, and again, 20 years as a radio host and content creator myself, that is something that has always been very much a part of my decisions about, what we talk about and who we have on the show, and being, really alert to that. As we roll out our live content, that will be a part of all, the training that our team will be receiving. It's really critical that people understand, trauma-informed decisions as to who you feature and how you care for people. Psychological safety is critical, not just for our audience and not just for the people on the shows, but for our teams behind the scenes as well.
Fantastic. So I've actually had a great content idea for you. Women's survival skills in small businesses. What do you think of that?
Absolutely love it. I mean, Tracy is bringing so many great ideas right now, and I'm very much enjoying that. And let me tell you, this happens to us constantly. And I believe if you're sparking ideas in people, creative ideas, content ideas, interviews that you want to hear, if you're sparking that, it means that there's a hunger for this conversation, right? And to me, that means also Tracy and people like her who come up with such fantastic ideas. We are really keen for user-generated content. That's going to be a part of the app we've already been working on with Ro. That's really important to us. So I love, business women, entrepreneurs. Most definitely. I hear an entire show just for that. It's, that's the sort of thing that we would love to feature. I mean, Tracy needs to we should just have a brainstorm, Tracy and I. I'm loving this.
Tracy, definitely feel free to reach out. If anybody does want to reach out on the Birchal profile, there's actually a button at the very top that says message, and you can get in touch with the team. So Tracy, please share all of your all of your beautiful wisdom. I know that the team would love to hear it. So I've got somebody who's a creator for a women's not-for-profit in WA. At the moment, do you envision there being a place in your platform for working community groups and what they're doing around the country?
Yeah, I mean, one of the wonderful things that we've done so far is feature the stories and the work of not-for-profits and community groups, most definitely. It's a real balance to get that right. And that's always the challenge whenever you're creating content, to really get that balance of what's in the news, what's maybe, you know, your health, what's more lighthearted, and what are community groups doing. And so that's just a content decision, but most definitely it's a big part of what we already have done. To spruik a podcast that we're making at the moment, which we absolutely love. It's called A to B, BE. And we've been able to feature the stories of some amazing community groups on that particular podcast. So it's already something that we do, and, you know, particularly passionate about, because women are so often the backbone of these sorts of communities and doing incredible work away from what we consider to be the professional world or the corporate world. You know, we don't draw a line there. We don't see there as being a difference in the impact of society between whether it's paid volunteer, whether it's corporate, whether it's community. Impact is impact, right? And yeah, the women in those community groups are incredible.
Yeah, fantastic. And I mean, when considering community groups and different areas of society in Australia and how we support different groups, do you have a strategy in place where you would like to give a voice to Indigenous people in Australia?
Oh, absolutely, most definitely. I see us as I would like to have an entire stream. I mean, the thing about internet radio is that you can have side-by-side streams and content. Most definitely, it's centered always in our content, and centering the voices of First Nations is really critical to us, for sure.
It's really, really great to hear.
Yeah.
And in terms of, you know, diversifying the content that you'll be providing on the platform, do you have a particular view in the way that you want to address that, and, you know, how you want to speak to diversity within a larger cohort of women as a whole in Australia?
I mean, I just think that's about making it at the core of every decision. And it always has been, right from the beginning. Whenever we have thought about who are we interviewing this week, who are our hosts on the live stream, who are we featuring as content creators, what voices haven't we heard, or what voices are we not centering, even though the conversation is about that particular group. You know, it's really important to us that right from the ground up, that's a core focus of ours and a core value. So it just kind of is a part of our bread and butter. It's a part of our DNA, and it's not something that we ever not think about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a little bit of a commentary around the benefit of a shareholder compared to an advertiser or a sponsor. So I know before we touched on the possibility for shareholders to have the ability to be, you know, featured on the platform. Would you say that that's like a great benefit to being there versus an advertiser or a sponsor? Because I imagine if you're an advertiser or a sponsor, it'd be quite expensive to advertise on a platform with such an engaged audience versus a shareholder who might have the ability to one day be featured. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I can't really speak to our rate card at this point, because that's going to really depend on, it's so reliant on how many listeners you have and the relationships that you have with your advertisers and sponsors. So that's very much bespoke packaging that happens as you're forming your relationships with your advertisers and sponsors. If we're speaking about the benefits for our community on the membership portal, that is quite different. They're just two completely different models. One is for community and for audience, and the other is for brands and advertisers and sponsors. So I'm not sure if you can even really compare
Mm.
the cost of the two. Do you have like the
Look,
delineation between the two there?
yeah, they're two, they're two quite different things. And, you know, very, very much as Joe said, the advertising sponsorship level is very much bespoke, tailored, very content, you know, in certain respects, it'll be really content driven. It'll be, you know, ads and pre-rolls and all sorts of things. And whereas we've got a whole different model for our, you know, member community and our member portal and that kind of thing. So I guess it's probably the difference between a cool directory versus a big brand partnership, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Great. I think that you answered that really well. That was really, I mean, it was really clear to me. Obviously, if anybody needs any further clarification, please just.
I mean, it's a great question. I really appreciate the question, the opportunity to clarify the two.
Yep. So actually, you've had a lovely comment that Tracy, our key supporter, thinks you already do take an intersectional lens, which is great. Thanks so much, Tracy. I actually really am loving how interactive everybody is being. It's really awesome. Tracy's also suggested that another industry sector that you could be really involving is community service, as 90% of those who are working in that sector are women.
Yeah.
Something I didn't know.
Absolutely.
Learn something new every day. That's awesome. Actually, Julia Gillard has been suggested as a potential guest.
Sure. Who's got her phone number?
I know, right? We would be on that so fast.
Look, I have been fortunate enough to interview Julia, the former Prime Minister, a few times, and she's a hero of mine. So most definitely she's on the top of our wish list, right next to Kylie Minogue. So, you know, we like to put in both camps there.
I actually remember working in marketing, not in the too distant past, where one of our clients was having a big town hall and they said to me, "Oh, I think that we'd love a really great entertainer, perhaps Kylie Minogue. Do you think that you could organise that? How much money?"
So,
yeah.
Anything is possible.
I know that Darren, in your experience in TV commercial producing, you have similar experiences to that, Jess.
Yeah. All the time.
So when you're looking at expanding, obviously you're starting in Australia and the Australian market is a great place to start. Do you think about reaching potential audiences overseas?
Absolutely. That is very key to our expansion plans. We definitely see this as having huge potential in the global markets. We have done some very cursory research around the world and yet to find anything that is like for like. And we do believe that, as Ro has mentioned, I mean, you know, content creators are global these days. What's really exciting is that we are able to actually start dipping your toe in the international markets right from the beginning because we're internet. So we could feature a co-host who lives in London, lives in America, lives in New Zealand, and we can start building that audience that way in that particular market. It's very easy to do that. So the flexibility around, you know, internet content and internet radio is really exciting, but we do plan down the track to roll out broad radio in other markets, definitely.
Yeah, and if I can put my tech nerd hat on as well for people that are listening and are really curious about that, you know, we know that so many things just, you know, happen because of viral moments. And, you know, while you can't exactly set out to engineer them, you can plan for them. And one of the things that we've built inherent in our, you know, delivery and our tech stack and in supporting the app is the type of, you know, essentially server that if we go from, you know, however many hits to an absolute, you know, 10 million hit in the space of an hour because something goes viral, it's built to capitalize. It flows out through a bunch of different servers through the world, and we are built to scale. So there's not going to be any of that, oh, their website's gone down because it's been, you know, crushed with traffic. We've already anticipated that and we've built for that. So the great news is if we do have that moment that just grabs a zeitgeist and flies, we're still broadcasting, we're out there and we'll be able to build on that, which is really exciting.
That's fantastic. I actually see Birchal CEO Matt smiling along, and I suspect he's because we actually had a little incident a few years ago when we weren't prepared for a big influx of traffic, and we had a raise by Zero Co, which you might be familiar with, sustainable cleaning products business, and it broke the site, and we
Wow.
were melted down in our tiny little office. This was before we'd gotten to the size that we are today, and our product engineers were like, how do we get the site back up?
It's heartbreaking.
It technically never went down, but we did need to put very hastily put a waiting list in line. But yes, music to my ears, Ro. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think anyone who's been in marketing over the last 15 or 20 years has, experienced that or skated close to that at least once. And, and the viral moments are bigger than they've ever been. So yeah, that was definitely something that we wanted in there from the outset. So yeah.
We do not want to be having any ticker tech moments.
No.
It does bring me to kind of one observation about this business. And I have to say, I'm super inspired by the story, by your choice to build in the way that you have, to source capital in the way that you have. But there is so much that is exciting about this opportunity. I think the way that you're using technology, that this is the way of the future. I think we've been talking about media ownership, particularly in this country, for a long, long time. And this, I think, is kind of giving us a window of what the future might look like, not just in terms of sourcing capital and who is owning media organizations, but how you are building them and how you can access global audiences. I'm sure none of this is lost on you at all, but maybe if you could kind of touch on a little bit about that, about how being owned by the people that are listening, that this outlet is being built for, how you are hopeful that might kind of change the or shape the business that you become.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a lot of ways, for me, it's about decentralization. It's about the fact that I think the future of technology is about democratization of content, but also access to, like, the barriers to entry as far as using technology, obviously, have been removed at a rapid rate. The opportunity for our audience, and this is why I've always loved radio, is because there is this incredible interaction between your audience immediately. But the fact that it's internet radio, so it can go regionally and to really remote parts of Australia very easily, that excites us. The fact that our audience can interact with us, and in this instance through the crowdfund, can be a part of actually building it. To me, there's a real ecosystem about that really excites us, because I just really believe in the value of every single person's voices. And I think that it's been removed from us for so long. And I'm really inspired every time I hear someone else speak and someone else share their story. And that then strengthens everybody else who's heard it. And hopefully that they might then share their story. Well, this is the portal that we're creating.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it's really powerful to have this kind of voice for so many people, and to reach people who might not think that this exists. And I think that doing a crowdsource funding raise and raising awareness around your business is really incredible. I know a few people have had to jump off, so we'll just open up for a few final questions. I know we've had a few people who would love to hear some Kiwi voices coming through the platform.
You bet.
Great. Love it. Some great compliments on the tech build. I also support that from what I've experienced. That's a stressful day. And yeah, also some suggestions to make sure that Indigenous voice is really present. And I think that's really important to a lot of listeners, and obviously something you've really strongly considered. Joe, actually, for those who don't know, was on the Birchal podcast about a week and a half ago. I will pop a little link to the show in the corner so that you can have a listen. I think it was really great to hear from you, Joe, as well. So thank you so much for joining us on the Birchal podcast, which has
Oh,
just been
I loved it.
relaunched. So Jo was our very first guest, which we're so excited about. So please feel free to share that with anybody who would like to get involved. And if you know anybody that you think would love to become a shareholder in such an incredible company like Broad Radio, please share the profile with them. That'll be awesome. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either the Birchal team or you can reach out to Jo and the team at Broad Radio. But thank you everyone for coming, and thank you Ro, Jo and Karen for sharing your stories. This was really, really great.
Thanks very much,
Thank you,
guys.
so
Emily,
much,
and thank you,
everyone.
Matt. Thank you
Thank
for having
you.
us.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great day.